Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that might just be filling your head with garbage. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly. We're streaming live most weekends, are available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks!
Roar.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he bows to no one. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
Each week, we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. If there's a corporate-friendly term for the sacrifice pit, he's in it. It's Robert Bouffard, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
We are also joined by another special guest. If you're watching the live video show, Andrew's got a little bit of puppers action going on the lap today.
Yeah, he just, during the countdown, he just hopped up and now he's tired. So
yeah, he's just sacked out. Look at that little puppers. Look at that little puppers. Remember, Aaron, this is a audio podcast as well. We're going to get into it. I will introduce you to Robert. You can check out Robert's stuff at sifpop.com. He is editor at sifpop.com. And thank you, first of all, for doing that. You've been working on the site for a while now.
Yeah.
And recently have stepped into kind of the editor position and kind of keeping things running and going with the best ever challenges that happened there and some different reviews and articles. Things are hopping there. Tell us a little bit about your work with Sif Pop and kind of what's going on at the site these days.
Yeah, so we're doing the typical weekly BECs where our writers always choose. It's the same sort of thing as the BEC on this podcast, except our writers choose their favorite movie and then they write about it and we put it all together, countdown 10-1 with honorable mentions. We've got a few series going on. Like I do one called On the Contrary. We have another one from our writer Reed, who does 20th century flicks. We have about 3 other series that are coming soon, very soon in the pipeline within the next few weeks or month or so.
Nice.
And then we always have reviews coming up pretty constantly.
Yeah, staff writer Shane is pouring out reviews week in and week out, and he's doing such a great job. And it's really cool to see the site hopping in that way and appreciate everybody there and the content that comes out there. If you want to check out sifpop.com, please do so because it is a really fun pop culture content place. And yeah, just kind of a nice little addendum to the podcast that you're listening to or watching now. If you are watching now, happy Thanksgiving. Oh, Aaron.
What?
We missed the whole year, guys. Sorry.
Whoa.
Happy Easter weekend. If you are listening to this. Yeah, exactly. If you're listening to this early in the podcast life cycle, hope you had a great Easter and it went well. Actually, no matter when you're listening to this, I hope you had a great Easter. I just meant it's probably more reason for you if you're listening to it soon. Gonna be that kind of show, guys. We are gonna have a good one. So a rare Saturday video show on Easter weekend, and we're excited to get into it. We've got Godzilla v. Kong to get to, as well as Bad Trip to review today. And of course, we'll do a best ever challenge. I think we're doing Kyle Chandler movies for our best ever challenge. At least I hope so. That's what I prepared for.
Yeah, me too.
And then we are doing, of course, our buried treasure towards the end as well. But I'm ready to get into it if you guys are.
Yeah.
Oh, let's make it happen, Captain.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Godzilla versus Kong. Kong and his protectors undertake a perilous journey to find his true home. Along for the ride is Gia, an orphaned girl who has a unique and powerful bond with the mighty beast. However, they soon find themselves in the path of an enraged Godzilla as he cuts a swath of destruction across the globe. This is, of course, the continuation of the Monsters universe. Well, it's probably shouldn't say the Monsters universe, because usually that's people think of like, the Mummy and Dracula and that kind of stuff. The Titanverse, I think, is the better way to go with this. And we've been looking forward to this one. We've had the Godzilla movies, we've had the Kong movie, and looking forward to seeing them battle and get it all up on the big screen. You've got many returning actors playing second bananas, so to speak, to the big monsters. You've got Millie Bobby Brown hanging out. Coming back, Kyle Chandler, as previously mentioned. Alexander Skarsgård is one of the major roles in this one. What did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? I'm going to the Godzilla expert last. So we'll start with you, Robert. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay?
Well, I don't have a huge history with Godzilla or King Kong the way Andrew does. So I'm going to go with it was okay.
All right. Robert with the okay. I'm going to go with mid to high side of liked it. I had a really good time with this. So I'm going to go with liked it. Andrew, what did you think about Godzilla versus Kong?
I'm going to go with low side of okay.
Oh,
I'm
exciting.
I know. No,
so this is
it hurts saying that. I'm not gonna lie.
No. I find it very interesting, and I was very curious your thoughts on this movie. I mean, I would have been anyway, but after I knew that I had enjoyed it, I was like, I wonder if like the serious Godzilla fans, Kong fans, like their thoughts on this. But I guess our pattern is usually to start with the person who liked it most, which I think is me based on our answers. And so I'll talk a little bit about why I enjoyed this movie. And it really just comes down to the fact that this movie gave me everything I thought it was going to give me. It gave me the big battles. It gave me, giant creatures beating on each other's heads in big environments. And it did it in a way that I thought was better than we've seen in the previous Godzilla movies, specifically in the previous, like this new batch of Godzilla movies. In the previous one, it was just, there's a lot of darkness and it would cut away to reactions instead of the actual fight. This one was like, no, we're putting the money into finishing the effects and we're going to show you Titan battles. And man, and I never felt like that led up for so long that I was bored. And is this a movie that I walk out of and I like want to gather a small group together to have deep philosophical questions about, nuclear holocaust or, what it might be, the environmental message, from Kong? No, this is a movie I just watch and I just let that, that part of my brain just enjoy the big spectacle and the big sound. And that was another thing, watching it on my home system, because by the way, this is still on HBOMax, debuted on HBOMax. It is also at theaters. I went the HBOMax route, and it was a 4K Dolby Atmos stream. It was a really beautiful stream, and the sound in this is so good. And that lower end, my wife came home from work, I think, while I was watching this and texted me, what is going on down there? I'm watching Godzilla versus Kong. She was like, it sounds like there's an earthquake happening downstairs. It's like, yeah, basically there is. That is basically what's going on. So it really is that simple for me. That is why I'm on the high side of liked it, is I just had a really good time. I actually can't wait to watch it again. Like, I'm just really excited to put it up there again and see some of these battles and see some of the little nuances I might have missed in the computer generation and just, different parts of the fights. I will also say there is one other piece. It really is that simple, but there is one other piece that kind of puts me in that liked it category. This really gets the Kong thing, the emotional resonance of that character right for me, I think. There is an element of this big bad beast, but also the empathy of him, missing his home and missing his family and all. I really felt like the center heart of this movie was Kong, and I appreciated that because I think that is the right call. I think he is the heart of these movies, and that goes from the very first King Kong movie back in the was it 20s or 30s, way back in 100 years ago. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts. Any responses or some of your own thoughts? Robert, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I was under just okay because, like you, I was going in, I wasn't expecting anything philosophical or Oscar baity or anything like that, obviously, because it's King Kong and Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, somehow I still feel like there wasn't enough of just two giant lizard / gorilla fighting.
Oh, interesting.
There was still just too much cutting to human characters for me, even though it's like a weird conundrum in my head because I liked all of the actors and I liked all the performances that they gave. I just wish maybe they had cut out one of the groups, and so either get rid of the Rebecca Hall and Skarsgård group and stick with the Brian Tyree Henry, Julian Dennison, and Millie Bobby Brown group. But I don't know. Overall, I really enjoyed the action stuff. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but Kong gets a weapon at some point, and I thought that was super cool. There's probably 3 different set pieces between the 2 titular characters fighting, and they're all really well done and really great. But just for me, it's still just 2 hours when you could cut out maybe 20 minutes and focus just more on the things fighting and less on the human characters. But I do want to say, for me, out of the human characters, that Brian Tyree Henry and the 2 kids he was with were standouts by far. I think that whole Atlanta crew, so Donald Glover, Lakeith Stanfield, and Brian Tyree Henry, they've all been great in everything they've done ever since Atlanta, and they just continue to do more diverse stuff. And him in this one is just a lot of fun and hilarious the whole way through.
Oscar-nominated Lakeith Stanfield at this point. So yeah, I agree. I that group of humans was my favorite group of humans, and there is something. You speak to the fact that the humans in these kind of movies are just so pointless. They're just useless. Like they really, and whenever you want to have them do something, it comes off as forced because there's just nothing they can really do.
Right.
So I get that, but I didn't think there was too much human in this. I thought there were too much human in some of the previous ones, but this one seemed to focus more on the monsters for me. Andrew, what are some of your thoughts?
Robert actually hit on my biggest negative with this movie, and that's I think there are way too many groups of people in this movie.
That's probably right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to bring in new people, fine, but you don't have to substitute in or add in, I should say, people from other movies as well. If you're going to bring in all these new people, we don't need Kyle Chandler. We don't need Millie Bobby Brown. Get me interested in these new people, or build on the relationships that you've already established with those previous characters. Don't try and throw both of them in at the same time, because what does that do? It takes away from time with villains and trying to establish their motives. It takes time away from monster fights. Just so many different things in this movie that made me go, I was really wish that you could have, and I may be in the minority in this group. I know in the Titanverse, this is a very common theme of explain more of the hollow earth theory, and we got a lot of stuff with the hollow earth theory. They did a lot of that in this movie, and I was like, thank you. But at the same time, you have all of these characters that you're going back and forth between, that it kind of forces you to think that the movie is more about them, when we all know that the movie should be about Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you do it though. You have to have the humans there for, a little bit of the exposition. The monsters aren't going to be able to do their own narration.
Sure, I'm saying you don't need you don't need so many people. Either have your original group that you've established in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla, or Kong Skull Island. You don't need to bring in new characters. Or, the other hand of that, get rid of all those original people and then just establish quickly who these new people are.
What did you guys think of the visual spectacle of it all. Do you think it worked better than the other movies like I did, or was it still you still wanted more?
For me, it worked. It worked really well for me. Out of all of these four in this cinematic universe, Kong Skull Island is my favorite, and I still think that one's the best visually, even though he's not fighting Godzilla in that one. But this one made me so grateful compared to Godzilla King of the Monsters, which just frustrated me to no end because there was so much cutting away, so much stuff just flying in front of the monsters fighting, and I was like, all I want to do is see these monsters fight. And this
it's always night, and it's always raining. And
right. All I wanted was like these wide shots of the monsters fighting, and we got a lot of that in this one. So I thought it did a really good job.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
The very first Godzilla is still my favorite out of all of these. It's funny because there's the least amount of Titans in that movie out of every single one of them. But it really is. I think there's like 20 minutes of Godzilla and the Mudos. But this one does a really good job of showing you those big fight scenes at the same time being well lit. I mean, who'd have thunk it? People might like that, you know?
People might want to see what's going on.
Exactly. And some of the set pieces, the locations for the fight scenes are really... what's the word I'm looking for? It really well thought out and unique. You know,
they're inventive, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, the way some of those fight scenes are concluded are ridiculous to me. I won't go into spoilers, obviously. But at the same time, that's not me. Okay, so here's the thing. What the people, like so many people, is my biggest negative with this movie. My other negative with this movie is there is a sense of ridiculousness to this movie in particular that exceeds what I was willing to allow the other movies to do. I guess you could say, like whether it be the way that the Titans react to certain things, or whether it be physics. There are some physics ridiculousness in this movie that I hated. And that's not like, here's an example. There are scenes like, what I love about the other movies is that these Titans move slow because they're so big, you know, that it's a real physical, you know, thing for them to look like they're moving in slow motion. Like when Kong throws a punch and it moves like that. You know, it's not going boom across the screen really quick. It's because they're so big. But at the same time, there are other scenes where they do move really, really quick. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to decide which one you want to do. You can't say just because it would look cool. You got to rely on your physics. And man, I really wanted to like this movie.
You landed on low side of okay, right?
Yeah, so close to didn't like it.
That's pretty mediocre, especially for a Godzilla movie that you wanted to love.
And I don't think that that's me being overcritical because I am a fan. Because I think that I, unlike apparently everybody else in the world, I love Godzilla King of the Monsters. I love that movie, and I stick by it, you know? This is the only one out of the 4 movies that have come out that I am close to saying I didn't like. And after I watched it, I'm like, oh man, everybody's going to be, you know, ragging on this movie, saying that they hate it. And I went online and a lot of people were like, no, I loved it. It was great. And I'm like, do I rewatch this movie and try it? No. This was an honest conversation I had with myself. Do I rewatch this movie and try and convince myself that I like it just because I'm a fan? Or do I stick with my initial review of this movie? And I'm going to rewatch it. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to rewatch it simply for the fact that I'm a Godzilla fan. So it's you know, I don't know.
Well, we've got a special guest in the live chat.
Mom! Hey, Mama.
Mom Ormsby says, Mama like Godzilla too. Yeah,
She
totally.
does. Whenever the first, when I say first, the 2014 Godzilla came out, I took her to the premiere of that, the midnight premiere of that at the IMAX. Yep. She vicariously through me fell in love with Godzilla.
Oh, nice. I'm sad for you, Andrew, that it didn't live up to any expectations it had, and you almost didn't like it. I'm happy for me that I had a good time. It's always fun to enjoy watching a movie. I just, my expectations were give me big monsters fighting, and I feel like I got that. As opposed to King of the Monsters, where I really didn't feel like I got that because it was all, like Robert said, so kind of shadowed and that kind of thing. I, like Robert, this would be a battle for me with Kong Skull Island for my favorite in this series of movies. I do like the original Godzilla. I do like that movie too. But Kong Skull Island and this one both gave me that giddiness of, oh, this is so cool. Like I had that feeling a lot during both of those movies.
Kong Skull Island undoubtedly is the most visually stunning and beautiful out of all of them. I mean, that movie's on a different level. Like, as even with other Hollywood movies, that's up there with like Mad Max Fury Road, with like just a visual, beautiful way to show carnage, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like those slow-mo shots with the fire and Sam Jackson just standing in the jungle. I mean, beautiful movie. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah.
And that one also has stuff to say, kind of like there's always the Apocalypse Now comparisons, and that really does fit. And that's one of my other negatives with this one, with Godzilla versus Kong, is that it's kind of a negative, kind of a positive, is that it has something to say. And I don't want to get too into it because it has to do with a spoiler, but it doesn't really commit too much to that. And to me, it also doesn't really commit to the monsters fighting or to the humans either. It kind of just has these few different things going on and doesn't really want to commit fully to any of them. And it just kind of seems a little bit lost.
It was enough for me. Like, I mean, what it's doing is it's taking the themes of Godzilla and the themes of Kong and finding out where they meet. Mm-hmm. And they both meet in kind of the central theme of this movie, which is about, human use of the natural world to destruction, right? Like that seems to be the major theme here, is about how humans take the beauty of the natural world and then use it to destroy. And that is kind of the combination of the Kong idea about nature and the Godzilla idea about nuclear holocaust. Like that's where those meet. So I thought that was pretty interesting. You're right. It doesn't really go anywhere with it. It doesn't like hammer that home.
Right.
But I didn't mind that because that's not what the movie was about for me. It was enough for me that it was just kind of there underneath. And if you wanted to think about it, you could. So yeah, that didn't bother me too much. Any other thoughts you guys had that you wanted to get out there about this movie?
The post-credit scene.
Which is interesting actually with this one, right? That's actually worth talking about.
The first Godzilla movie did not, but Kong and King of the Monsters did. Mm-hmm. So a lack of consistency.
Well, and I just wonder where we're headed. Like, do we know where we're headed with the Titanverse? Granted, I don't necessarily keep up with that stuff as much as you guys might, but
there's actually there's a comic series for the Titanverse that runs parallel to the movies. But the movies have to, do that thing where they don't really acknowledge what's going on in the comics because it'd be way more confusing. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those, it's just a little icing on the cake sort of thing. But I think that you could take a lot of stuff from the comic book and graphic novel series and implement that into this movie franchise. I think that there is a lot of, ways you could go. You could add Gamera, which is like, out of the three, there's like three big, kaijus that a lot of people know. Kong, which is the Western, kaiju that everybody knows. Godzilla undoubtedly is the most famous out of all the big monsters ever. Mm-hmm. But then Gamera would be like the giant turtle is the other one that everybody goes, oh yeah, Gamera. So that might be a way to go.
But there's no plans or anything. Like I haven't heard any like news.
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah, I haven't heard anything either.
Well, and it's interesting because, I mean, this one took so long to get to us for very obvious reasons. We've all lived in this world for the last year. We know kind of what's going on. Originally, I think it was scheduled exactly a year ago. I do like that there's almost and I think this is intentional and maybe even has to do with the release date, but there's almost a March Madness feel to the matchup where it's like it's almost like a bracketed matchup where it's like these Titans are going against each. Anyways, that was a thought I had, but it was
this
timing.
like the championship round.
Right? Yes,
past
exactly.
the Sweet 16 with the Mudos and the Skull Crawlers and the Elite Eight. Yeah,
but it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago on this show, where I think the news broke about Godzilla versus Kong, and it was in a I think you brought it up, Andrew, in your segment, and it was 2 years ago where we did the if the movie doesn't end with him saying Mothra, why did you say that name joke? And now like millions of people have done that joke on Twitter because it's just it's one of those jokes. It's like I don't even like I'm sure somebody did it before we did too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like it's just right there. It's like it's the universe. The universe wrote that joke. You know, we didn't write it. But yeah, fun times.
Indeed.
My final thought, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Is just I thought it was awesome that Godzilla pops his shoulder back into place on a skyscraper. I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that is a fun
I didn't
moment.
know someone that size could get a dislocated
Kong,
shoulder.
it?
Or I'm sorry,
it was Kong. Yeah, it was Kong. It's interesting. And that's again part of what I really liked about it was it just seemed like the movie had those moments where it's like that's cool or that's clever or that's fun, and there were enough of them that I just floated throughout, just going, I'm having a blast. So there you go. Godzilla versus Kong, still available on HBOMax for is it like a 30-day timeline they do for those movies? I can't remember. Yeah. So another 3 or 4 weeks. It should be there for you, and then of course it's in theaters as well. All right, let's move on to our next review. Let's talk about Bad Trip. Hidden cameras capture two best friends pulling hilarious and inventive pranks on an unsuspecting public. This is a Netflix movie. Comedian Eric Andre at the head of this here, as well as Lil Ray Howry and Tiffany Haddish, kind of round out the main cast. And then a conglomerate of unsuspecting normies are in this movie. And let's talk about the concept of this movie, even before we get to the liked it, loved it, just so people kind of have an idea of what's going on here. This is the idea of, shows like Candid Camera or more recently Punk'd or Jackass or those kind of things. But with a plot structure. There is definitely a story that is being told, and they're using these pranks as scenes in the story. So obviously that means
the pranks push forward a fictional narrative.
Correct. So obviously lots of improvisation. Obviously they structured this and then probably shot it several different times with several different unsuspecting people, and then took the best takes and the best moments. So what did you think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or was just okay? Andrew, we'll start with you this time.
Hated it. It's not a movie for me though.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's a great distinction to make. When you say hated it. What about you, Robert?
I'm gonna say low side of liked it.
Low side of liked it, and it may surprise people. That is exactly where I am as well. I think I actually liked this movie, but it is the low side, and almost solely for, and maybe we can start here, almost solely for the cringe factor. I'm just not like, there's just there's just things that happen in this movie where it's like the humor is that you can't believe it's happening and that people are watching it, and you feel so bad for them, like that. And for me, I get it. I get that discomfort equals humor, but it's just one step below laughing at people who are injured. Like there's it's just, there's this fine line between actually being a jerk and making fun of people and pranking. And I just pranking is one of those things I just have this terrible relationship with. And I don't mean any personal big stories or anything. I just mean I kind of get it, but at the same time, every time I see a prank or somebody pranked or an April Fool's joke, we just came through April Fool's, which I think was part of the release of this movie, was kind of in conjunction with that. I feel like I don't think I'm okay with it. I would not do that. That's probably the best way to say it is I wouldn't do that. to people, because I think it's kind of mean. So that aspect of it kind of keeps me from giving any kind of big recommendation or big loved it to a movie that actually is really funny. There's some really funny stuff here, but it's just hard for me to see beyond kind of the cringe factor in that. Robert, you also seem to like it, so why don't you go next? What are some of your general thoughts?
Yeah, so a similar type of movie to this would be Borat, right? And that's a situation where they're pranking people, quote unquote, but he's making the people that he's around look bad. Borat, Sacha Baron Cohen is. But here it's all Eric Andre and Will Howery are the ones that are the butt of the joke. You know, like he's the one falling off stuff or getting his clothes pulled off in the vacuum or whatever. People are still in disbelief of what's going on, and you're getting reactions for the camera and for the movie, but they're not the butt of the joke. Like they're probably not going to be too upset about being included in the movie. So I'm kind of the same way as you, where I like this sort of prank type of movie or show because my wife and we love to watch Impractical Jokers, and that's a similar thing where they're the butt of the joke, and like with this movie. But the only reason for me that this is only low side of liked it is because there's a lot of gross out humor in it. And the gross out humor is what I don't really jive with. The other kind of stuff of like people getting hurt or just saying dumb things or just making fools of themselves, I love all of that, and that's where I got a lot of enjoyment. But there was some gross out humor and just some stuff that I was like, all right, let's move on to the next thing. And that's where I kind of, it lost me a bit. Yeah,
I think you're right. I think I would echo a lot of that. Yeah, it is kind of the gross out stuff is the cringe stuff that I'm just like, I don't know. What, Andrew? What are your thoughts? I know you hated it, so I can kind of probably guess your thoughts. But go ahead.
I don't like cringe humor. This movie is, as Robert said, gross. There's a lot of vulgar, disgusting humor that's just. It doesn't appeal. There's literally nothing in this movie that appealed to me. Like I was like, I'm not familiar with Eric Andre or his work, so it's not like I was like, ooh, let's see what he's up to. I don't like prank humor. I don't like that gross, disgusting humor. I hate seeing people put in a situation or exploited in a situation for a reaction, like an unwilling participant. Like I don't like it. It's so weird. And I think maybe if there's one shining light in this entire movie, it's Tiffany Haddish. I just think she's great in anything she does. So her character was fun to watch because she really goes for it. I guess that's like my one, thing that I'm going to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to hang my hat on that. But other than that, like, this movie is just, it's not for me. It's not for me.
It's interesting because I was going to ask you if there was anything you liked, and I was going to prompt that with Tiffany Haddish because I do think she is the star of this movie. I think she comes out looking really good, just for her acting chops, if nothing else. Like, she sells her character much better than Eric Andre and Lil Ray Howery do, in my opinion. And I think they
have characters. I think that they're just gimmicks. They don't have there's nothing about them that screams character development. Where Tiffany Haddish, I totally 100% buy into it. But
here's my another negative that I have that kind of keeps me. And the more I think about it, I probably how we start to wonder on this show from one ranking to another.
Did I actually like
it? Yeah, this is the case of heading down into the it's just okay, maybe high side of it's just okay for me. The more I think about it, talking it out with you guys. But one of the other things is I get very distracted by the mechanics of a movie like this. I get distracted by the production of it. Because my mind starts thinking like, oh, that person knows what's going on, and they're trying to play along with it too. And then that steals some of what the movie is trying to do, where it's trying to be, oh, we shocked these people. I'm like, I don't think you actually shocked that person. I think they're acting. And so even just the conversation in my head distracts me from the movie. And so, and then there are moments where I feel like, okay, if that is real, like there's actual danger going on. And I think, one thing a lot of these type of shows and movies do is they will show you the after effects in the credits. And
Popcorn.
What's that?
Popcorn. When you knew he was actually,
that's what I was going to bring up. That was maybe my favorite is a weird word, but the most compelling 10 seconds of this entire movie is when you learn that if he feels like he's in danger, he has a safe word, and he gets into a conversation with somebody at a bar, and that guy says something about, okay, I guess we're going to find this out. And he just starts walking away going popcorn, 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 popcorn. And I'm just like, that was so real. Like, I don't know. It was just so compelling. And I was just like, so that kind of stuff almost distracts me from the movie, because the movie is trying to sell something that is more manufactured than we would think, even though I think the movie admits it's manufactured. It probably at the end of the day, we would be surprised at how much more manufactured it is than we would even believe. And I can't stop those thoughts from like peppering my whole viewing experience. So it gets a little distracting.
Yeah, that's why with a movie like this, especially this movie specifically, is that like I don't think too much about it as a story or like as a movie in the same kind of sense as even like Godzilla versus Kong, which we talked about, because so much of it is set up and there's cameras. Like even at one point, I'm pretty sure someone looks into a camera and gives it a look, like one of the people who's supposed to be being pranked.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
This isn't the same kind of fictional movie that you're always going to see. And they're not even pretending to film a documentary like with Borat or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did appreciate, for one, what you were talking about, the end with all the people finding out. That's always one of my favorite parts of a movie like this or a show like this. Just people finding out like, oh, I can breathe now. This is all fake.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, there was some actual heart underneath. It's the same, like you said, with Godzilla, where it's not super deep and it's not like the main point of the movie. But if you dig just a little bit, it's there. Like sibling love and, the scene, I'll just say there's a scene with a soldier at the end. I thought those couple scenes were really good for hammering home an actual point slash message.
Yeah, it's hard for me to give it too much credit on that level. It just all seems very shallow to me. But it is there. You're not wrong. I see what they're trying to do. I'm just not sure that it's as impactful really.
I just give it slight props for like actually trying and not just being 100% pranks.
It's funny because you did the thing where you compared it to Godzilla versus Kong, and that made me laugh because I wrote the exact same review on Letterboxd for both movies, and just to see if anybody would notice. But the review is, this movie is exactly the movie it wants to be, and I know exactly the part of my psyche to access to enjoy it. And that was the review for both Godzilla versus Kong and Bad Trip. So yeah, I can see there is that element of, oh, I'm not expecting too much out of this because that's not what this movie is trying to be. Which is interesting because sometimes a movie like this somehow gets nominated for Academy Awards. Hello, Borat subsequent movie film. So, you want to make that joke where it's not trying to be an Academy Award winning film. And then you got Sacha Baron Cohen out there accidentally making an Oscar nominated film.
That one just hit at the right time.
Yeah.
And, like the right world events.
Yeah, I think you're right. About that. Any other thoughts on what happened here in Bad Trip? Robert, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
I think I said everything I had.
Yeah, there's not a lot necessarily to go into. Andrew?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, post-credits, outtakes. Through quite a bit of the credits. So, yeah. So there you go. Bad Trip is on Netflix. If you have a Netflix subscription, it's there waiting for you to watch if you want to watch it. I don't know.
If you like prank stuff, I mean, you're probably going to like this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
if you're a fan of Jackass or Punk'd or anything like that.
It's an easy recommend to somebody who loves prank stuff like that. So there you go. It is on Netflix. Before we get into Best Ever Challenge, even before we get into thanking our SIFPOP members, I did want to say, Andrew, was it you that recommended Roar in the documentary about making the movie Roar?
Roar, the most dangerous movie ever made. Yeah.
I watched that. I wanted you to know I watched that. I figured I'd tell you on the show. So I watched both the movie Roar, which is on YouTube. If you want to check it out, you can just search for it. And then also the I guess documentary. I guess it's basically an episode where they talk.
I think it's like a Discovery special. Where it's like a 45-hour long.
Yeah, I found it on demand on Discovery On Demand. I think Animal Planet On Demand is the one that's showing it. But I did watch both of those things, and everything Andrew said is correct. It's insane. I can't believe they got I can't believe that nobody died.
Oh yeah. That's the miracle of the movie. Nobody, people get mauled, people get bit, clawed, everything.
John DeBont lost half of his cranium. It's crazy.
I know. Nobody died.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to see an animal lover who has maybe taken the idea of humans and animals living together to too far of an extent,
it kind of reminds me of Grizzly Man a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then subject his family to it as well, which is insane. Yeah, you can check out Roar. I wanted to mention that as well.
Real quick, before I know we're trying to get to the next segment, but I'm going to shout out. I'm going to shout out Invincible that was brought up last week for Buried Treasure. That show is great. I'm loving it.
We could do a segment on the show every once in a while that's like, hey, you recommended it and I watched it kind of thing, because I also watched Invincible this week. So that might be something we can do.
Yeah, chat. Everybody in the chat, think of a cool name for that new segment.
Yeah, do it. Before we head on to the best ever challenge, thank you to our SIF Pop members. We appreciate you very much. That's at patreon.com/SIFPop. We do a show for our SIF Pop members every week where we take a topic and just have a conversation for you as a SIF Pop member. There's also some other fun stuff there that you can check out. Robert was on the show this week doing his list of shame game. That is where we have our guests admit movies they have not seen, and then we try to guess of the ones they list which one they've actually seen. So you can check that out if you're a SIFPOP member. It should be in your podcast feed now. So if you want to see what it's like to be a SIFPOP member, just go to patreon.com/SIFPOP, and we appreciate you very, very much. Also, you get your podcast without commercials when you're a SIFPOP member. So get that too.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the best ever challenge. Best ever Kyle Chandler movies. I like me some Kyle Chandler. He's been in some good stuff. Clear Eyes, Full Hearts.
Can't lose.
Can't lose.
Yeah, can I just throw out my honorable mention, Friday Night Lights? I mean,
right.
If we were doing TV shows, that would be number one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it may surprise many to know I've never watched a single episode of Friday Night Lights. So that just completely missed me.
Clutch my pearls.
It's so daunting to think about. It's the same reason I've never watched an episode of Sopranos. Well, I can't say that. I actually watched the pilot to write on it for my other job. But yeah, it's just so daunting to think of. I know everybody loves this, but I don't know that I want to spend the next, year of my life trying to, catch
Fine
up
time.
on it. So yeah.
Let's get into. I love that show. It's
I
good.
know. I know for a fact I love it. I'm sure I
see
would.
very young Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, totally. Best ever Kyle Chandler movies. We will go from number 5 to number 1. If you have something listed higher than it's mentioned by somebody else, you can trump it. And we'll talk about it when it's your turn at its highest. So we'll start at number 5, and Robert, as our guest, why don't you kick us off? What do you got at number 5?
Sure. I kind of expect this one will be trumped, but I'll say it anyway. I have First Man at number 5.
Trump indeed. Indeed. We will talk about that in a little bit or a lot of bit, knowing how I feel about that movie. All right, Andrew, what do you got at number 5?
I'm going to go with a character that we've talked about today, but in a totally different franchise. I'm going with King Kong, the Peter Jackson one.
This just barely missed my list. I really like this movie.
It was I'll just say First Man was my first honorable mention, so it was right there behind King Kong. So they could have been interchanged. I think that this movie gets scoffed at for being so long, and yes, it is a very long movie, but It's Peter Jackson showing off. And we should not be surprised at this point whenever Peter Jackson decides to make a long movie. Yep. I mean, that's kind of his thing. But I think that everybody's great. I think that, honestly, I think that Kyle Chandler's pretty fun in this movie. It's a character I'm not used to seeing him play. But if I'm going to say there's a single standout performance in this movie, besides Andy Serkis, who just brought tears to my eyes as King Kong, I'm actually going to go with Jack Black. I thought that his character was fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Great movie. Makes me cry every time. I love it.
I echo everything you said, including Jack Black. I think this is definitely a fun one.
I saw that when it came out in theaters, and that means I was a little kid, and I've never gone back to it. But Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie ever, and I need to... I want to refresh on my Peter Jackson, so I'm going to see it at some point.
I think it came out either 2006 or 2007 because I was in college, and it was the first date I ever took a girl to. Hey, you want to go? Yeah, let's go see King Kong, which is not the date movie you'd really expect it to be. Not going to lie.
Lots of creepy crawlies in that movie. All right, my number 5 is Super 8. I really enjoy this movie. I don't know where pop culture aficionados kind of stand on this movie these days. I remember when it came out, J.J. Abrams was kind of hitting a lot of big swings and doing some good stuff. And I also remember it was like heavy into the or I shouldn't say heavy. It was just kind of tipping over into the cool it with the lens flares, buddy. Like it was this is where we kind of tilted into, I think, people tiring on some of the ways he did like visual stuff. And so I think it was kind of split between movie lovers whether or not they enjoyed this or not. But it also kind of fits with the idea of kaijus and the idea of kind of the monsters and what we're talking about. I just think there's some really good performances here. I think unlike other monster movies, this one doesn't depend on the monster really at all. It's almost a MacGuffin. The monster's almost a MacGuffin in this movie for, more of the homage to like Spielberg, kids on a quest kind of thing that it's doing, which I really, really liked. So Super 8, one of my favorites.
Kid from my acting class is actually in this movie. He's
nice.
No. Yeah, he's do you remember like at the end of the movie the kid who Gabriel Basso was his name. He did the detective he like that made the fake detective movie, Yes. That was him. Nice. The thing I remember most about this movie is this came a couple years after Cloverfield did.
Yes.
And the marketing for this movie had a lot of people suspecting, is Super 8 going to be the sequel to Cloverfield? And that was the big thing. And that's what he likes to do. He likes to build J.J. Abrams the suspense. The way he markets movies, especially the Cloverfield movies. I mean, that's the way movies should be marketed. Don't give everything away.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's my number 5. Let's go on to our number 4s. Robert, what do you got?
Wolf of Wall Street. Anyone trumping that? I was expecting that. Yep.
I figured Andrew might trump that one. It was in my honorable mentions. I am debating watching that again. I didn't really like it that much. But man, a lot of people love that movie. So I may have to give it another shot. I will say Kyle Chandler is one of my favorite things about that movie that I remember watching that movie. That scene on the boat remains. That tete-a-tete remains one of my favorite scenes in that film. So
could you say that for me one more time?
Sorry, I just realized it was Trump. We shouldn't be talking about it. Let's move on. No. Let's move on to your number 4, Andrew. What do you got?
This is where I have Argo.
I'm gonna trump that one. Yeah.
Okay.
What we're saying, what Robert and I are saying, Andrew, is you had it way too low. Come on, buddy. Just kidding. All right, my number 4. I think will be trumped as well. Zero Dark 30 is. I assumed so.
I think we all have the same list. They're just in the wrong. I think we all have the same list. They're all just in different orders. So
let's go with number 3s then. Robert, what do you got at number 3?
This one I don't know if it'll be trumped. The Spectacular Now. It's one of the earliest A24 movies. It's like a teen romance movie with Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley, and it has a really sneaky great cast. Got the two of them, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Brie Larson, Bob Odenkirk, and then Kyle Chandler, the guy we're talking about. It was, in my opinion, it's the first really good A24 movie. Came after Spring Breakers and Bling Ring, which were the first two bigger, like widely known ones. But this one's really good. Apart from my number one movie, which we'll talk about in a bit, this is the one where Kyle Chandler is featured the most. He's Miles Teller's dad. But not to spoil it, when he comes into the movie, when Kyle Chandler comes into the movie, that's when it really takes off and gets to a different level. And a lot of the movie's themes really start to mesh, and that's what makes it really great to me. Is it's a good teen romance up until that point, but it's a great just overall drama, family drama once the movie ends.
It's a great choice. It was in my honorable mentions. 2013 was an interesting year because Spectacular Now came out, as did Short Term 12. And I always get those movies confused because they are both great movies with incredible cast. Brie Larson's in both of them. And they both have like casts where you're like, oh, that person went on to be amazing. If you've never seen Short Term 12, it now holds, I think, 4 Oscar nominees, like amongst, like in their like first role. Brie Larson, Lakeith Stanfield in one of his first roles. Caitlin Dever is in there in one of her first roles. Rami Malek in like one of the first time we've seen. Like, it's just interesting to go back to, and see that. And as far as Spectacular Now, you mentioned Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is also in that as well. So yeah, it's just those two movies always get jumbled in my brain, not because they're the same movie, they're really not, but because it's kind of feels the same as like, look at this incredible young cast doing great work. So good choice. I'm glad you brought out Spectacular Now. All right, I think Andrew, that means we're at your number 3.
Yeah, it's gonna get Trump. So game night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Trump.
Robert's gonna trump it. Well, guess what? That means
not?
No, it was my number 3 as well. So Robert trumps it for both of us. So we'll go on to your number 2, Robert. What do you got at number 2?
This is where I have Argo.
I have Argo at 2 as well. So let's talk about it now. We've both got it at number 2. Andrew had it at number 4.
Yeah.
So on all 3 of our lists, in number 2 for both Robert and I, talk about Argo.
Yeah, so growing up, I mostly watched like IP-driven stuff, like all the superhero movies or like King Kong or whatever. Just because I wasn't really allowed to watch some certain types of dramas, and I wasn't interested in certain types of dramas just because I was never exposed to them. But as a teenager, Argo was one of the first like drama not attached to anything else that I really watched and really got into, and I really loved it. And then when it went on to win Best Picture, that kind of just elevated it in my mind to me. I think Ben Affleck is great in it. He's great at directing in that. And of course, as the lead, this is another one that has a lot of people that like Bryan Cranston and Kyle Chandler, and they're part of that one great scene at the airport. That's like the scene in the movie that's totally fabricated from real life, but that doesn't bother me at all because of how great the scene is. But yeah, I really love Argo.
I do too, and I want to rewatch it. It's been too long, but I think my memory is that this is just like when you talk about perfect films, just the idea of that doesn't mean it's without fault and you couldn't find something you didn't like about it. It just means it does exactly what it wants to do, like in every scene, and it's so compelling. And I just remember being way along for the ride on this one, and it's been too long since I've seen it. I need to revisit this one because I love this movie. I think it's really good.
The thing that this movie does, and the reason why it works, is because it's building to a single moment. This tension is and it's building upon itself over and over again to get to that one scene at the airport, and you're just like, it all comes down to this. If they can't pull this off, so that's why that scene in the airport is so intense and stressful, is because this cast and the directing and the writing has done such a magnificent job of building that tension to that point. So yeah. Totally.
Great movie. The first one we've talked about that was on all 3 of our lists. So there you go. Yeah. Argo coming in at number 2. So Andrew, I think that means we need to hear your number 2, right?
I think so. This is where I have Zero Dark 30.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. I had it at number 4. Andrew had it at number 2. Robert, I don't think it made your list.
It's my honorable mention.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, talk about it, Andrew.
Wow, Jessica Chastain is crazy good in this movie. I mean, this is her movie, obviously. Kyle Chandler has a really, interesting character. Mark Strong is super good in this. But this movie comes down, kind of like with Argo, it comes down to the last 30 minutes, And that last 30 minutes is probably some of the most intense, compelling, riveting filmmaking I've ever seen of something I know the outcome to, I know what's gonna happen, but I can't help it because it for so long, I remember exactly where I was whenever I watched the news that Bin Laden was killed. I remember exactly where I was. So knowing that what I was doing was while I was doing this was happening on the other side of the world. This insane undercover operation. So I don't want to make it sound like the first 2 hours of this movie weren't compelling, because seeing Jessica Chastain put together all of these pieces, that was riveting stuff. But honestly, it's that last 30 minutes where you see Chris Pratt and Joel Edgerton and the rest of those Navy SEALs go in and do business was just such a intense, exciting, adrenaline-inducing experience.
Yeah, it's really compelling. It's just really compelling movie making. I
love Catherine Bigelow.
Yeah, great work. I think that brings us to our number one, since I had Argo at number 2, and we already talked about that. And I think if you've been paying attention, I think all 3 of our number one. Well, maybe not Andrew's. I don't know if Andrew's number 1 is. Yeah, I think you do know all 3 of our number 1s. So Robert, kick us off. Your number 1.
Yeah, this is where I have Game Night. Well, I mentioned earlier, this is out of all of the ones on my list where he's where Kyle Chandler's most involved, and he's kind of at the heart of all the conflict, right? He gets it all started with what is supposedly the fake murder mystery thing, and then it turns out that he's actually being hunted down. It's just this wacky, awesome action comedy thing with actors in an action comedy that you wouldn't expect. And it's shot so much better than you would expect. There's a scene with the Fabergé egg going all around that house. I can just watch that over and over. It's an unbroken shot in the movie, but I'm sure there was editing involved, but it doesn't matter because it looks perfect. This is another one that's just a go-to for my wife and I, because it's that perfect middle of just like the action, the comedy, the romance, even with Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, both of whom I really love. I could just go on and on about Game Night. I just love this movie so much.
I want Rachel McAdams and Jason Bateman to just star in a series of films that are unrelated, but as a couple, create another story around. It's just, they are so good together and so funny together. This movie is great. You had it at number 1. I think, Andrew, both you and I had it at number 3.
3. Yeah.
So another one that's on all our lists.
Movie.
Sure. This movie's great. Yeah, I don't have too much to add other than
honestly,
it's so
I can't
fun
tell
to
you
watch.
how many times I've seen this movie, because every single time I watch it, it gets funnier every time.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really good.
There's so many great scenes and one-liners that are just coming to my head right now that we could just sit here talking about for 20 minutes.
Oh no, he died.
Exactly.
Oh, no, he died.
So many good stuff. The ultimate for me, and I will laugh so loud I miss portions of it every single time, is the bullet wound scene. It
came out.
It just slays me every single time.
Because she bought that like Good Housekeeping, that one magazine, because he likes the I forget what it was, but that's so great. It's so lovable,
so good. Andrew, tell us about your number 1 movie.
Wolf of Wall Street.
There you go.
Insanity ensues. I think that this is the movie where I was like, come on, give Leo that Oscar. Like he should have won for this one. I think that his character is fascinating. That as Aaron mentioned earlier, that scene on the boat with him and Kyle Chandler was just, it's great. It's great because neither one of them was going to back down. One of them had the money to back up his gravitas, and the other had the power of the law to back up his. So seeing them go back and forth, like, you think you're going to take me down? I know I'm going to take you down. That kind of thing going back and forth. It's just so good. I love all the characters in this. I think that this is probably I think this is where everybody first saw Margot Robbie. Great. I mean, thank you so much, because I love her in almost everything she does now. She's so good. I'm trying to have Jonah Hill is wacko in this movie, but I love it. I love every minute of it. I could see how, Aaron, I would actually recommend, not just because we're talking about it, but I would actually recommend going back and watching this movie. I have a feeling I know why it's not a movie. You think it's not a movie for you. It's kind of that same with those gratification of the mafia lifestyle type of movie.
Right. Yeah. It's this Scorsese thing, and it could just be all me. Like, I just have this Scorsese thing where it's like he is painting this picture, and it doesn't have anything to do with consequence or no consequence. Like, I mean, maybe it has a little bit to do with that, but it has more to do with the exuberance and joy of hurting people, harming people's lives. It's not presented to me in a way where I can fully embrace that it's satire. It doesn't feel like satire to me. It feels like Scorsese is like, oh, isn't this stuff cool? Like, and I just, like, it's hard for my spirit to be like, not be like, no, that's not cool. That's awful. And, like, I don't know. So it's just something I have with him. And I felt it during this movie. Maybe if I can rewatch it and try to separate that part of, my psyche or my eyes, and just be like, okay, try to see it more as satire. I don't know, but yeah, it didn't work for me. And you're right. That is it.
Yeah. I don't know if it's really satire in his movies. He's showing, like, this stuff can be fun and you can enjoy it, and it can, like, be fulfilling for you for a time, but it's not going to be worth it in the end. Especially with, like, Goodfellas and Wolf of Wall Street. Like, you see the real consequences that the characters have. The real Jordan Belfort may not have the same sort of consequences, but the movie character that he's portraying has real consequences. And you see that, like, all of the stuff that he was doing up until then, while it was fun, he was having a great time. I don't think he's saying in the end it was worth doing. So, like, I'm not sure that he was kind of satirizing it while it's happening.
Like I said, like, the consequences, I agree. I don't think in all of his movies he's saying it's worth it. What I think he's saying is, but don't you get it? Don't you get why they do it? Like, look how fun this is. Look how great this is. And I'm just like, no, I don't get it. I don't think it's fun. I don't think it's great. And I don't want it. Like, my spirit just, like, pushes back on that in some ways. And what I hear you saying is there's an honesty to it. And what I'm saying is that's not my perspective. Doesn't find that honest. It finds it false. So yeah,
for me, whenever I watch Scorsese's movies that deal with the same type of, like, emotional, like, do you like this or not, I never get that. I always go with the Icarus story, like, oh, these people, they're flying so close to the sun, those wax wings are gonna melt, and when they fall, they're gonna fall hard. That's what I get out of these movies. Like,
sure. And what I'm saying is I don't think they're flying. That's what I'm saying is I don't get the joy of flight from it that Scorsese does and most people do.
Let me rephrase that then. I'm not saying that, like, the journey up to this point, I'm like, oh man, I wish I had this lifestyle. I'm watching somebody and I'm not envious. I don't want it to come across that I'm envious of what they're going through. I'm like, this person, I understand that they are loving this right now. And they, like, I don't care what the consequences are. They just, until the consequences happen, sort of thing. Yeah.
I listen, we've had this conversation probably, at least a dozen times on this show, and I totally get it. And there is there's no judgment from me for enjoying a movie like this. We're all different and we all have, put ourselves in different mindsets. I'm just telling you, I have psychological barriers to whenever it feels glamorized. Whenever there's a glamorization, I feel I like my hackles go up. And so Scorsese tends to do that to me. And this is another one of those movies. I'm not opposed to watching it again and trying to, turn the hackle dial down and just seeing, what I can get out of it. But I just trying to kind of explain myself and kind of, where I come from. But, you've heard it before. You know?
That's why I love subjectivity, is that your opinion is totally valid and mine and Andrew's opinion is just as valid as yours.
Absolutely.
But we're right.
Agree. You're right. The difference is you guys are right and I'm wrong. Yeah. That is the difference.
Aaron, number one.
My number one is First Man. I believe it was also on your list at number 5, Robert. Is that correct?
Number 5.
And Andrew, you said it just missed your list. King Kong knocked it off. Yeah, it is no secret how much I love Damien Chazelle, how much I think he is an absolute artist when it comes to making movies and telling stories. And I'm still trying to figure out how this one missed the mark for most people. So this movie is absolutely astonishing to me on a visual level. It's astonishing to me on a story level, on a thematic level. The stuff that he's doing with Neil Armstrong here and the idea of almost space travel as therapy is just, I mean, it's so deep, it's so introspective, it's so beautiful. I really dig this movie. So yeah, First Man, if you didn't see it because there wasn't a lot of buzz about it, I'd highly encourage you to check it out. If you just saw it amongst a bunch of stuff and you know, just kind of set it to the side, but thought maybe I'll come back to that, go back to it. I just think there's a lot of real beauty in this movie in a lot of different ways. So that's my my take on First Man. Robert, you also had it on your list. So
yeah, I'm more in the camp that I really appreciate it more than I really love it, because La La Land is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I can't really get on board with Whiplash. That's another one that I really appreciate. Like, I understand why people love it. And I still have it kind of at like a 4 out of 5 stars.
You were doing so good. You were doing so good, Robert, with Andrew. And then you mentioned not liking Whiplash, and Andrew's like, we're never having him back.
It's sort of similar to what you were saying about Goodfellas or anything Scorsese. It's like, I can't get on board with any of the characters and there's no one for me to invest in. So First Man's another one where I like really appreciate what Chazelle does. And I appreciate the themes that are going on. It just doesn't grab me as much. But I think there are great themes, great visuals, great music, and of course the 2 great leads with Claire Foy and Ryan Gosling.
Yeah,
that's where I'm pushing back. My biggest issue with First Man is I can't buy Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong. It just didn't work for me because I knew, like, I shouldn't say I know Neil Armstrong, like, you know, from documentaries and stuff that I've seen, he had that rock star mentality, you know, that a lot of astronauts have. And that is like the exact opposite of the character that Ryan Gosling is portraying. I get that this is a work of fiction. They did the same thing in The Social Network with Zuckerberg. You know, the Zuckerberg that Jesse Eisenberg portrays is nothing like the real one. But for some reason, in this case, it just made it that much more difficult for me to invest, I guess I could say, in this version of Neil Armstrong. And since the whole movie rests on his shoulders, that's where it kind of falters. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of visuals, like when he's doing that test flight in that incredibly tiny, like cockpit, and he can only see at that tiny window. It's like anxiety inducing. And then probably one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema is in this movie when they first open that hatch onto the moon, and the camera pans out onto the moon. I don't know why that transition to IMAX was just so like surreal. It's one of my favorite shots of all time. I don't know why. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah. He sets it up so perfectly. I mean, he spends the entire movie cramping you with Neil. Even the regular conversations are shot in close-ups, and like everything feels cramped. And he chooses that moment to just loosen the entire movie, and it's representative of Neil's character feeling that release of, you know, the idea that traveling to the moon allowed him to deal with those demons. And so you come out of the ship and it just opens up, and especially if you're watching it in IMAX for the very first time during the entire movie, the only time that movie is in IMAX is during those moon scenes, and it's purposeful, it's beautiful, and there's a reason it hits so hard. It's really well done. There you go. Best ever Kyle Chandler movies. I only have one honorable mention left that we didn't talk about.
Probably the same one I do.
Yeah, I have one as well.
Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It deserves mentioning. I didn't love it as much as some, but I definitely felt it. It is definitely a movie that you feel.
Right.
So yeah, it's a powerful one and definitely worth mentioning.
It's not a movie you go back to, I don't think. Like it's rough enough, like the emotional impact is like, oh, I don't want to put myself through that again. It was beautiful and I'm glad that I watched it, but man, that was sad.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there you go. Let's head on to the buried treasure, guys. What's that one thing in any area of pop culture you want to make sure people know about it? Robert, you get to go last on this. I will kick us off. And just say Top Chef is back. Had the first new episode in a long time this week, and I really, really enjoyed Top Chef. Now, it's an interesting story for me because I didn't watch a single episode of Top Chef until the pandemic. And then I watched every single episode of Top Chef. Yes, this is the guy who just said Sopranos was too much. Listen, there's a difference between being able to watch reality television in the background while you're working on other stuff and watching, like a high praised, high prestige cable show.
Totally
need your attention. But yes, I watched every single episode of Top Chef. And then it's different now that it's on live. I get to kind of partake in the fun of conversation between episodes and, who made what and who's doing good. And I know all the guest judges because this year they're all like former winners or contestants that did really well. You can tell that they're also really patterning this season as an emotional kind of, how hard the restaurant industry has been hit over the last year, and it has been hit hard. I think we all understand that. We all get that, but this show is like certainly not shying away from that. And it's clear that they were all quarantining together to do the show, and that's why they have the same, guest judges kind of rotating through and not bringing in kind of the different judges like they usually do. But it took me a long time to start watching this show, but now that I am, I wanted to give it a shout out because I do really enjoy it. I didn't think I was a cooking show kind of person, but this show is really well done. So there you go. Top Chef is back. Andrew, what do you got for your buried treasure?
I'm going to go with a Western anime, and it's a Netflix original. I'm going to go with Dota Dragon's Blood. It's actually based off of Dota, the video game, which I'll say this right now, I have not played, but Dota is one of the most infamous video games of all time. It's like one of the biggest bestsellers. This is a really interesting and fascinating story to get into. It's a medieval dragon slayers, wizards, elves, that kind of stuff, but told from a very, I guess you could say, adult viewpoint. I guess if I had a one selling point, like to say, it's an animated Witcher, with dragons. It's really good. I think the voice acting is great. You had a lot of very famous actors in this. You got Troy Baker, Tony Todd, Robert Englund. A lot of really good voice actors doing some really good work. This is a fun show. Like I said, it's a Netflix original. Content warning, it is, adult themed. I'm not saying it's like Game of Thrones or anything, but there's violence, there's language, but it's good. Real good.
Does Dota stand for anything like Day of the something or Dragons of the something or anything like that? Or is it just Dota?
I'm about to find out.
I wasn't sure. I've never really heard of it. But yeah, that's interesting. Dota, Dragon's Blood. You said that is on Netflix.
Yep. Defense of the Ancients.
There you go. I knew it had to be some sort of acronym. Defense of the Ancients. Very nice. Ancients?
Ancients.
Well, it should be Dote then, if my GIF people are correct.
Them are fighting words. I haven't had this conversation.
Robert, what about you? What's your buried treasure?
Yeah, so with the Oscars coming up this month, I've been preparing with a few movies that I've still yet to see, and I recently watched Another Round, the Danish movie from Thomas Vinterberg and starring Mads Mikkelsen.
I want to see this so bad.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. So if you wanted to, if you want to watch it, it's right there. I'm not somebody who drinks a whole lot, but I really enjoyed what this has to say about drinking. And it's more than just a movie about drinking and people's relationship to alcohol. It's like a lot about enjoying life and what we do to enjoy it. It's these four guys who, it's these four school teachers who kind of agree with each other that they're going to live their life for the foreseeable future with a certain amount of blood alcohol content. And see if it makes their life better. And for a bit it does. And then, as you know, it would probably, it kind of goes downhill a bit, but I'm not going to spoil it too much. Yeah, Thomas Vinterberg, the director, was nominated for Best Director at the Oscars, and this was nominated for Best Feature Film. It just kind of got me zealous about life at the end. The very last scene is the best scene in the movie, and the whole movie kind of builds up to it. And up to that point, it's great, but it kind of goes over the top to really great with this perfect last scene. So yeah, I completely recommend this. It's another one, obviously, it's a little bit of content warning. It's rated R, but yeah, it's still a great movie.
It is one of the greatest closing movie scenes I've ever seen. It's really good, and I think it's interesting. I do think you said. I could be wrong, but just to clarify, I think you said Best Feature Film, but Best International Feature.
Did I say Best Feature?
You may have, but just to clarify, it is nominated for Best International Feature.
Is it a front runner, or?
I think it is the front runner. I think it is the front runner to win that award. It is, as somebody who didn't drink and only very, very recently has done so. It is really interesting to me to investigate people's relationship with alcohol and kind of what that is. For me, it was always a dark, scary warning, right? And this movie is not a dark, scary warning. Does it have a warning in there? Sure, it does. Mm-hmm. But this movie has a really interesting way to point a light at alcohol and just say, this is everything that people have a relationship with alcohol for. And kind of what that looks like and what that means. And man, it's not a preachy movie at all. It's just a really interesting, well done story. And you buy into the relationships and you buy in to the people and all of that. So yeah, it's a high recommend for me as well. So yeah, there you go. Another round. Good choice. Well, we did it, guys. We did a podcast.
Yeah, we did.
Congratulations to one and all for accomplishing what many were saying we would never be able to accomplish. And we proved them wrong.
People
and finished
stop
up an
betting
actual
against
podcast.
us.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we got it done. Thanks so much for joining us today. Sif Pop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. Find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
And a big thank you to Drew for doing the graphics for the show.
Big clap.
And thank you to Robert for hanging out with us as well. Robert, where do you want to send people? What do you want to tell them?
Sifpop.com and at _Rob's Thoughts on Twitter.
There you go. You can check it out there. Much love and gratitude to our members, our SifPop members at patreon.com/SifPop. You make this possible. $3 a month is where it starts. You get access to all the bonus episodes at that level and above, as well as some other fun perks. So you can check that out again at patreon.com/SifPop. Lots of ways to connect with the podcast. You can leave a comment, rating, or a review wherever you listen. We would appreciate that. That helps out quite a bit. You can also email us, feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like it too, so let them know about it and that listening is much easier than understanding how gravity works in Hollow Earth. We will be back next week, probably with Concrete Cowboy, which is another Netflix movie that just came out, and win something on top of that. But we will see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, video watchers. We appreciate you being here. We love you. Stuart, yeah, we're crushing those doubters for sure, finishing up podcasts. It's amazing. The one Heath Bar, thanks for hanging out. Also agreeing that Super 8 is underrated in a great movie. Totally agree. Mark RG hanging out. Sonic, of course, in the chat. Rampage did it better. Fight me. You're not wrong. I like Rampage a lot more than most movie critics do. I had a lot of fun with that movie, but I also liked Skyscraper. So what do
I'll fight you, Drew. Don't worry. I'll fight you.
So yeah, Austin hanging out in the chat as well. Happy Saturday to you as well, Austin. And our friend David hanging out too.
Hey, David, I didn't see him up there. I gotta read that comment. What'd he say?
Did anyone have a spare 4 hours laying around and watch Justice League? Justice is Gray. I did not.
No.
Sorry, David. Sorry.
Don't worry.
Well, there you go.
I can add it to my schedule.
Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thanks for hanging out live with us. And we'll be back, I think, next Sunday. We'll be live again.